What if I told you that one of the greatest goal scorers of his generation might be remembered for his failures? This is the story of Harry Kane, and it's a journey far more complex and heartbreaking than you might think. Make sure you're subscribed and you ring that notification bell, because you won't want to miss a single one of these legendary tales from the beautiful game. So what is Harry Kane's legacy? I mean it. If you stopped a casual fan on the street, someone who knows the name but not the story, and asked them to explain his career, what would they even say? On my second channel, I talked about that second penalty against France in the World Cup. That single moment felt like his entire career distilled into one kick of a ball. It was a legacy-defining moment, a chance to finally shatter the narrative that he was an internationally known serial bottler. To be the hero, the man who carries England towards a second World Cup, that would have erased everything. It would have redeemed a career that, as harsh as this sounds, so often left fans feeling, well, just feeling sorry for him. Think about it. Harry Kane has scored well over 300 goals in his career, a staggering number. Yet, can you picture one that truly stands out? One that's etched into the annals of football history? Now compare him to someone like Didier Drogba. Drogba never scored at the insane rates Kane is capable of, not even close. But his 12 goals in 15 cup finals, those goals built a legend. They decided titles. They wrote history. Kane has all the numbers, but for so long they felt like empty calories. They were almost meaningless. Because greatness isn't just about how many times you find the net. It's about how much those goals bend the arc of football history. And if you think I'm being too harsh, let's use his own words. He once said, "I close my eyes and picture myself lifting the Premier League trophy. I'd trade my next 100 goals for that feeling." He knew it. The goals weren't enough. But here's the puzzle. Tottenham hadn't won a major trophy in nearly 4 decades. England hadn't won one in over half a century. So when exactly could Kane have cemented that legacy? And in what ways did he fail to grasp it? Well, someone once asked Kane to tell his own story, and he began with a chillingly simple line. Failure is a funny thing. And as he unspooled his journey, you could see that word failure wasn't just a part of his story. It was the ink it was written in. Kane freely admits he's been engulfed by self-doubt since he was just a kid. He has struggled his entire life to find motivation from within, always needing to find it somewhere or someone else. Take, for example, the time he was released from the Arsenal Academy for being, and I quote, "a bit chubby." And yes, you heard that right. The future England captain, the Tottenham legend, once wore the red and white of their bitterest rivals. But it's the way he tells the story that's so revealing. He talks about his father, who didn't seem worried at all that this huge opportunity had slipped away. There was no pressure, no desperate push to fight back against this rejection. His dad just told him to forget about it, move on. And look, I'm sure that's a healthy way to raise a child to protect them from the crushing weight of expectation. But I couldn't help but feel a disconnect. I've told you the stories of 1,000 footballers on this channel, and I swear 90% of them, as kids, would have seen that rejection as a death sentence. They would have rather died than waste an opportunity like that. For so many of them, football wasn't a choice. It was the only way out. And sometimes it feels like that inner fire, that raw, primal need to conquer your own limitations, to drag yourself to a place you have no right to be. That's the one thing Harry Kane has always lacked. After the whole Arsenal fiasco, he landed at his local club Ridgeway Rovers. That journey eventually led to a trial for Watford, where in a twist of fate he played against Tottenham. He impressed them enough to get an invitation to their academy, and just like that, he was home. From there, you could say, things got comfortable. Most of his family were die-hard Spurs fans. He grew up just a 15-minute drive from the grounds. And in a way, that sting of rejection from Arsenal gave him the external fuel he craved. As he put it himself, every time I played against Arsenal, I thought, let's show them who's right and who's wrong. Looking back on it now, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. It gave me a drive that wasn't there before. Still, for a long time at Tottenham, he was just another face in the crowd. The same old weight problems persisted. It wasn't until a sudden growth spurt that things began to change. By 2010, he was a different player, finishing the youth season with 18 goals in 22 matches, competing against lads 2 years his senior. This earned him his first professional contract at 16 and his first call-ups to the main team, even if he never left the warmth of the bench. But just as the fairy tale seemed to be starting, the story grew dark again. He was seemingly incapable of leaving a mark in training. In his second season, he didn't make the bench even once in the first half of the campaign. Tottenham's solution. A seemingly endless cycle of loans. First came Leyton Orient, down in the English third tier. And while his 5 goals in just over 900 minutes weren't terrible for a teenager, they certainly didn't convince Tottenham. 6 months and a single goal later, they sent him packing once more, this time on loan to Millwall. And it was there, in the gritty, unforgiving world of the Championship, that Kane says he began to seriously wonder if he'd ever play a single game in the Premier League. The self-doubt was back, and it was taking center stage. His time at Millwall, though, was actually a quiet success. On the surface, 9 goals in 27 matches doesn't sound world-beating. But you have to dig deeper. 7 of those goals came in the final 14 games of the season. They were absolutely vital, dragging Millwall from a dangerous spot, just 5 points above the relegation line, to a comfortable finish, 17 points clear. The fans hailed him as the kid who saved their season, and he was named the Championship's Young Player of the Year. But even that wasn't enough. Despite scoring a hat-trick for Spurs during pre-season, he was shipped out on loan again, this time to Norwich City. At least finally it meant a chance to play in the Premier League. But even that dream soured almost immediately. Just 2 matches in Kane broke his metatarsal. He was stuck on the sidelines for 2 long, agonizing months. By the time January rolled around, he'd started just 2 top-flight matches. Spurs, in a panic, brought him back, insisting he would be the replacement for Leandro Damião, a deal that had collapsed in the winter window. But just 20 days later, he was on the move again, loaned out. This time to Leicester City, back in the Championship, with the hope that he could help them clinch promotion. Not only did he fail in that task, but he was barely a footnote in their season, getting a meager 650 minutes of game time over 6 months. The doubt wasn't just creeping in now. It was consuming him. He questioned, and I'm quoting him directly, "If I can't even play regularly in the Championship, how could I ever play in the Premier League?" And if you think that's the depths of his self-doubt, let me tell you this. He's admitted that one night his family came to visit him at Leicester. He was so broken, so ready to give up on everything, that it was his father who had to physically stop him from packing his bags and driving home for good. They got into a heated argument with Kane, ready to throw away his entire career. Can you even imagine that a player of his talent so close to just walking away? What do you think separates a player who has that internal unbreakable self-belief from one who needs to find it elsewhere? Is one destined for greater glory than the other? Let me know your honest thoughts down in the comments. And that's not even all he's admitted to. He said he doubted himself because he felt he didn't look like a proper striker. He basically confirmed that he's unable to generate motivation from within, saying the only reason he managed to turn his career around in 2013 was because he watched a Tom Brady documentary and decided to model his entire mentality on the NFL quarterback. In reality, it was that borrowed confidence that prompted him to finally stand up for himself. He faced his manager Andre Villas-Boas who told him he'd be going on loan again. And for the first time, Kane just said, "No." He told the manager he'd rather stay at Tottenham and not play a single minute than go somewhere else. As strange as the motivation behind it was, for the first time he was taking matters into his own hands. He says that single moment changed the rest of his life. In his own words, "I had the ability on the pitch, but I didn't have the confidence to stand up for myself. My childhood dream was right there, and I was just waiting for someone else to hand it to me." Eventually, it all paid off. Villas-Boas left and Tim Sherwood took over. After a blistering performance coming off the bench against Benfica, turning the game on its head with 2 assists in 2 minutes, Kane finally got his shot in the Premier League. He was handed 3 consecutive starts, and he scored in all 3 matches. It was his proper introduction to the big time, and it was enough to impress Mauricio Pochettino, who would take over as coach the following season. Poch went all in, betting heavily on Kane to become the team's new superstar. It proved to be a masterstroke. The striker exploded, grabbing 15 goals in the first half of the season and playing even better in the second. 2 goals and an assist against Chelsea. 2 goals against Arsenal. A goal and an assist against Liverpool. A hat-trick against Leicester. But, and with Harry Kane there is always a but, if that first spectacular run made it seem like he would be a man for the big occasions. The finale of the season told a different story. He failed to score in the League Cup final against Chelsea, denying Tottenham what could have been their first trophy in ages. He then went on a dry spell of just 2 goals in his final 8 matches, allowing Sergio Aguero to snatch the golden boot from his grasp and watching Spurs miss out on Champions League qualification. This, unfortunately, was a much more accurate depiction of the player he would become. A player who since 2015 has played over 75 games against the Premier League's top 6 and scored just 22 non-penalty goals. That's roughly 1 every 4 matches. It's not terrible, of course, but for a striker of his caliber, you just feel he should be delivering more, especially when compared to his great rival of that era, Aguero, who scored against the top 6 almost once every 2 games. Regardless, there was an upside to that season. Kane was named the PFA Young Player of the Year and earned his first caps for England. But then, almost as if to prove the doubters right, he made it seem like the whole season had been a fluke, starting the next campaign with a miserable run of just a single goal in 13 matches. Then just as suddenly, he found his scoring boots again and somehow, miraculously, still managed to beat Aguero to the golden boot. He fired Tottenham to a 3rd-place finish, their best ever in the Premier League era. But that nagging thought lingered. What if he had started the season properly, a few more goals here or there? Could Tottenham have won the title in that unbelievable Leicester season? I guess we'll never know. What was much more palpable, however, was Harry Kane's complete disappearance at Euro 2016. He scored 0 goals. Despite having a pretty impressive record for England in friendlies and qualifiers up to that point on the big stage, he vanished. But it was his first tournament, so we'll cut him some slack. The next season felt like a rerun of the same tragic play. This time a nasty injury kept Kane on the sidelines for 3 months, robbing him of his first real taste of the Champions League. But then he came back and he started scoring at an absurd, almost comical rate. He powered Tottenham to a 2nd-place finish in the league, once again their best ever. And in a stunning final flourish, he scored 7 goals in his last 2 matches to steal the golden boot right out from under Romelu Lukaku's nose. By the end of the calendar year 2017, Kane had scored an incredible 56 goals, beating both Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi to the title of Europe's top goal scorer, ending their 7-year duopoly on the honor. It was quite simply his absolute peak. But again, that feeling of what if hangs heavy in the air. You can't blame him for the injury, of course, but you're still left craving more, asking, If he had been fit all season, could Tottenham have finally won the league? After a year like that, there was another way to make history. By the time February 2018 came around, Kane was just 7 goals away from breaking the single-season Premier League goal-scoring record. For a moment, it seemed like destiny. It felt like it was written in the stars for him to be the one to do it. But then, he scored just 6 more goals over the final nearly 4-month stretch of the season. He didn't just waste his shot at the all-time record. He wasted the opportunity to win 3 Golden Boots in a row. He allowed Mohamed Salah to storm past him, not only snatching the Golden Boot that seemed to belong to Kane from the start, but also shattering the goal-scoring record in the process. It was a collapse of gigantic proportions. And just when it seemed things couldn't possibly get any worse, they did. This journey is a roller coaster of highs and lows, and we're just getting to the most dramatic parts. If you're gripped by these stories of legends and the fine margins between glory and heartbreak, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We explore the tactical revolutions, the untold underdog stories, and the moments that define football history every single week. Alongside that personal collapse, Kane failed to score in yet another semi-final this time, wasting Tottenham's shot at an FA Cup title. Then came his second tournament for England, the 2018 World Cup. He won the Golden Boot, something that for any other player would be a legacy-defining moment. But for Kane, it became a source of shame. His 6 goals consisted of 4 penalties and 2 tap-ins against Tunisia. And above all, he became infamous for that one moment, the wasted opportunity to square the ball to a wide-open Raheem Sterling, a simple pass that could have sent England to the World Cup final. However, just a quick tangent here, as iconic as that moment is in the Kane narrative, he was actually already offside when he received the ball. Even if he had passed it to Sterling and he'd scored the goal, would have been disallowed. But narrative is stronger than fact, and the image of his failure stuck. The next season, perhaps still mentally scarred by the awful ending to the previous one, Kane's form dropped off a cliff. His struggles were only highlighted by Tottenham's incredible, almost unbelievable performances without him at his best. They still made it to the League Cup semi-final, they still qualified for the Champions League, and most remarkably of all, they made it all the way to the Champions League final, despite Kane being out injured for the 2 crucial months leading up to it. And it was right there, on the biggest stage in club football, that things got truly painful to watch. After Tottenham had heroically battled past Dortmund, Manchester City, and Ajax, Kane declared himself fit just in time for the final. But instead of being the hero who could help them take that final glorious step, he played like a ghost, a shadow of himself. He was completely, utterly unremarkable. As he trudged off the pitch at the final whistle, his head bowed in defeat, his polar opposite walked alongside him, a gold medal gleaming around his neck, Divock Origi. Origi had played just 7 games all season, but he had performed a miracle against Barcelona and scored the final clinching goal. In a couple of nights, he had achieved what Kane hadn't managed to do in a decade. Origi became a cult hero. Kane became a tragic figure. If you've ever debated Kane's legacy with a friend, or you know a Spurs fan who has lived through this roller coaster, share this video with them. And let me know in the comments, which football legend's story of triumph or tragedy should we dive into next? Over that same month, Kane went on to disappoint for England yet again, failing to score a single goal in the Nations League Final Four. Another disappointing injury-plagued season followed where he missed 16 games. It was only a year later that he returned to his best, this time as a seemingly reimagined version of himself. He was now a creator as much as he was a finisher, racking up 17 assists that year, totaling an astonishing 50 goal contributions in 49 matches and winning a 3rd Golden Boot. But he failed to score in the final of the League Cup, going home empty-handed again. And he once again missed out on the PFA Player of the Year award, another stain on his legacy. Then came the summer and Euro 2020, which was perhaps one of his brightest moments in an England shirt. He was magnificent, scoring 4 crucial goals in the 3 knockout matches leading to the final, including a dramatic extra-time winner in the semi-final against Denmark. It was a truly memorable, heroic performance. But then came the final, and he was completely anonymous. He failed to register a single shot. He failed to create a single chance. And when England went down on penalties, even though he scored his, it was impossible not to look at the whole tournament as just another glorious, wasted opportunity. Ever since that night at Wembley, he seemed to spiral into a huge identity crisis. He tried to force his way out of Tottenham, desperately looking for another club where glory might be closer to his reach, but he failed completely and ended up stuck there, a reluctant hero. The following years looked the same as they'd always been. Now, nearly 30 years old, Kane was still completely trophyless. His great start to the season was completely overshadowed by the supernova that was Erling Haaland, and his solid performance in the 2022 World Cup with 5 goal contributions in 5 matches was erased from memory by that one fateful penalty miss against France. But in the latter half of that 2022 to 2023 season, something shifted. He remained the indispensable leader of Tottenham, and while the club faltered, he continued his world-class goal-scoring rate. The most significant milestone, though, came on the international stage. On March 23, 2023, with a goal against Italy, Harry Kane officially surpassed Wayne Rooney to become the all-time leading goal-scorer for the England national team. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated individual triumph. That summer, he made his move. He completed a blockbuster transfer to Bayern Munich, a club synonymous with winning. He was opening a new chapter, deliberately chasing the one thing that had always eluded him. And in his debut season in Germany, he was nothing short of breathtaking. He immediately demonstrated his world-class status with unprecedented individual achievements. He became the Bundesliga's top scorer, bagging 36 goals in his first season. He won the European Golden Shoe for the very first time in his career. Yet in a twist of irony so cruel, it felt scripted. Bayern Munich, the perennial champions, failed to win the league title for the first time in 11 years. It seemed the curse had followed him. Following that club season, he led England as captain at Euro 2024, once again dragging the 3 Lions to the final, and once again finishing as runners-up. The almost man once more. But then came the 2024 to 2025 season, and this season became the one that changed everything. The season where Harry Kane officially finally ended his long, agonizing quest for a major trophy. He was the key factor, the driving force that helped Bayern Munich reclaim the German league title. He lifted the Meisterschale. It was the first National League championship, the first major trophy of his entire club career. He continued his devastating goal-scoring form, successfully defending his title as the Bundesliga's top scorer. The wait was over. The narrative was broken. And that's where this incredible football story finds its turning point. What a journey, right? From the chubby kid rejected by Arsenal to a trophyless legend, and finally, a champion. I'm so eager to hear your thoughts. What moment in his long struggle stood out to you the most? Did his journey resonate with you? Please share all your opinions, your favorite Kane moments, and any questions you have in the comments below. I truly love reading them and building this amazing football community with all of you. We'll see you in the next one.